my friend. Have you read all the books, blogs, podcasts, Instagram posts, etc.? You think you know how to be a good mom, but you feel like you're hopelessly flawed and can't do all those things? Do you feel like you're drowning in motherhood and at best you can tread water sometimes, but you're just not getting anywhere? You're still stuck in all the same ruts. Your kids are out of control, your house is a mess, and you can't find any motivation to change any of it? You just feel terrible all the time, stressed out, burned out, and over it? Well, I have great news for you. You have come to the right place. I've got you. I'm Emily Wardrop from Drop the Word Life Coaching. I'm an advanced certified life coach, and I want to let you in on one little simple secret that can change everything for you. You want to know how to be a good mom? I'm going to tell you the secret. Are you still listening? The secret is you already are. Join me on this journey to believe you are a good mom. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Believe You Are a Good Mom. I have another amazing guest today, Sarah Larsen Shiozawa. Can you believe it? Here she is in the she has the biggest smile, and you can't see it on the video because we are not doing video today. We are both in mega kicking it mode. So, but you can look her up and see her all her places and see her beautiful smile. But I'll just let her introduce herself. We'll jump right in. Sarah, what's up?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm Sarah Shiozawa, and so I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I had
Twins.
including twins, so I had 3 kids in 2 years. My son is now 6, and my twin girls are 4.
So let me just pause for a second because I've had a lot of guests that do not have young kids. I don't know how that's happening, but here we are with somebody who's actually in the thick of it with us. So awesome.
Yes. It's interesting because I had some pretty significant health challenges after my twins were born, and I didn't know what was going on. I was not myself. I mean, I was having some pretty significant health challenges. And when I got, some of my physical health like back online, that's actually when I found coaching. And that was the opening because there was so much there. So it was actually being coached on motherhood that opened me up to coaching just to begin with. Like, I had no idea about really any of this, and it has been quite the journey to begin, and it completely changed my life.
So tell me about your life before coaching, even before marriage and kids, because we were just talking about this and this is really interesting. So fill us all in.
Yeah. So I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I, went to school there. So I spent most of like my early life there. And, when I finished grad school, I studied at the Romney Institute of Public Administration, and then I got an MPA, and it was my dream to work and live in Washington, D.C. So I'd finish up, an exchange at Shaman University, which was over in mainland China. And my best friend from grad school, we just caravanned out to DC. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any place that I knew I was going to be, specifically. And I just took this big leap of faith and went out there. And that's where I was supposed to be. And, if you can believe it, within just a couple of weeks, I found, my first job, which is a couple blocks from the White House. It was working for a small female-owned business. We did consulting work. We worked with FEMA. We worked with the Department of Homeland Security. And that first firm that I worked in was really where I grew up and, met my mentors and, had just an amazing time living in DC, and I was there for many years before I got married and started my family.
Mhm. And, well, run through all those very fancy sounding jobs that you had there.
Yeah, so I mean, I did a fellowship in the U.S. Senate. I worked for Bob Bennett. I also worked for Becky Lockhart in the state legislature, and she was one of the very first female Speaker of the House.
Mhm.
Both are no longer with us.
Mm.
Amazing individuals, incredible leaders for the state of Utah, and I was so grateful to work with both of these individuals.
Mhm.
And then when I went back east, it was more on the lines of project management. So I did a lot of that, working with political appointees, rolling out programs that would go out to the entire country and on state by states. So it was some very interesting work. Um, you know, I didn't even know about coaching at the time,
Mhm.
but we were doing similar kind of client type work, working with managers, working with leaders, working with teams, figure out like what their problems were, like where in their organization or where in their, dynamics were there gaps?
Mhm.
Where was there conflict in the team?
Yeah.
And not only for our clients but also for us, like we were having kind of our own interesting interpersonal dynamics, and I was exposed to a whole, you know eh, exposed to some of these Gallup, strength,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and emotional intelligence, and it was kind of my first kind of touch point into what this world is as well.
Yeah, because now what you do is you're an executive coach, right? Like, you
Yes.
coach people working in corporate that you've had all this experience with.
Yeah, so
And oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So now I work with women in corporate, women that are typically mothers, but also they're leaders and managers, and so very multifaceted women that are trying to, excel and at work, but also trying to balance everything at home.
Mm.
And so many of my clients and so many of my friends, to be perfectly honest, you know, going back to work after maternity leave, everything that comes up.
Mhm.
And then of course their experience through the maternity leave with their company. So that's actually come up quite a bit this last year. I've had clients pivot to new positions
Mm.
um during maternity leave, and they realize, hey, this was not what I thought it was going to be, and they have moved into other opportunities. I've had other friends realize I don't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
I want to be home with this baby. Like this is more important to me.
Mhm.
I want to write. I want to write a book. I want to go back to school. And so every woman's journey is so unique. And for me specifically, like I thought I was always going to be a stay-at-home mom, when I got into that realm. And I realized that I needed goals, and I needed, not that you don't have it as a stay-at-home mom, but I needed a little bit of structure. I needed a little something to push towards.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if I was just at home focusing on birthday parties and all these different things, like I wasn't progressing, or I wasn't using all of my skill sets. And
Yeah.
so for me, I was at a plateau, and yeah. So anyways, I jumped all over the place there,
Yeah.
but there's
That's
some
okay.
really interesting, I think women really have some interesting opportunities and challenges,
Mhm.
and those can change. Like what you want and what you desire, that can always change.
Yeah. And part of that struggle um is you come into a marriage thinking, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and he's like, great, that's what I want you to be too. And then you're like, oh wait, maybe I don't. And he's like, that's not what I signed up for. Like, that could be part of the struggle.
there's just a million different things. And so when you're coaching your clients, is it kind of you're coaching them in the workspace in their heads or in the home space? Is it more like parenting
So
traumas or
for my coaching, it's like very specific. So I'm working with um women. A lot of the coaching that we're doing is, the confidence at work.
Mhm.
When I work with a lot of leaders that are newly promoted, so they'll have, performance reviews where they're having huge groups of people are coming back with feedback and how they're going to interpret that.
Mm.
They're managing people. And
Yeah.
so when you're managing other humans, a lot comes up on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
So primarily it is at work, but these women are also dynamic. They have life outside of work.
Mhm.
Um, and once again, for whatever reason, there was a lot of maternity leaves that came up this year.
Mhm.
One of my clients came back from maternity leave, and a bunch of had people leave the team,
Mm.
because she had been gone, and they had felt overwhelmed, and having different gaps in ages of the children.
Yeah.
So having one child in high school and then a newborn, and
Yeah.
so of course you're going to have the personal, because the whole human shows up at work.
Yeah.
And, if you're feeling overwhelmed at home, if, your house, the state of your house is not what you want it to be, even if it's as far as an organization standpoint, you're not getting rest. You're trying to juggle all of this at home. And then you also have work and all the obligations there. One of the beautiful things about coaching is you have that safe space,
Mhm.
whatever it is. If it's something that's coming up at work, if it's something coming up in your romantic relationship, if it's something coming up with your children, with your health and your wellness, like you have a place where you can check in with somebody who's outside of your own brain,
Yeah.
who's outside of your own lived experience,
Mhm.
and compassionately hold space for you to kind of navigate through, okay, what's coming up this week?
Mhm.
I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling exhausted. I don't have enough time. Okay, let's walk it back, and let's talk about it. Like what, in just a few moments, like what are your priorities? If we're just going to sit for just a few minutes, like what are those 3 to 5 key priorities? And let's talk about last week. Like, is your time reflecting what those priorities actually are? And without a doubt, most every woman that I'm working with, even if she's, she's a leader, she's a manager, she's, providing for her family in some regard, without a doubt, most of the time, the very top priority is time with my family,
Yeah.
time with my kids. So it's at the top of their priority list. So even if they're not thinking about it along those lines, like these relationships are the most important thing to that woman.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think especially as a woman, sometimes it's harder to maybe leave work at work and leave home at home, because like men, just the way their brains work, like kind of their tunnel vision, it's like, okay, I'm at work, whatever's going on at home, I'm not even thinking about that. But like you said, like our emotional state, if we're not feeling good about what's going on at home, it's going to leak into at work a lot more. And then we have, of course, the societal pressure that like we have to keep it together and we can't be like too emotional and we gotta be professional and whatever all that stuff is, right? So I did my stint in corporate when we were just talking, we both got married when we were 30, 31. And so yeah, I had, you know, those days that I was happy to say goodbye to. But but yeah, anything in that realm that you want to
yeah.
address?
So what I was thinking, because one of the things that comes up, and this is something that's so nuanced, and it's going to be different for every woman, and it's going to be different for every household, but it's the emotional and the mental labor
Mhm.
that woman is in charge of. So not only is it the actual output of what she's doing at work, or she's coming home and she's doing the dishes, she's doing the laundry, she's taking care of the kids and putting them down, but it's all of the emotional and mental tasks.
Yeah.
Who's setting up doctor's appointments? Who's going grocery shopping? What's on the calendar? Who's going to parent teacher conference? Like all these little details. And as we know, like the brain, when all of that's stored up there, when it's swimming around, that's taxing, right?
Yeah.
And so and that's one of the things that has come up quite a bit. And I love a book, it's called Fair Play. And there's actually like a deck book where couples can
Oh,
work
yeah.
through this. And it might take you a year to work through this deck of cards or this book, but it's like having conversations. These are the conversations that are uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
as you have done things in your partnerships, in your marriage, a certain way.
Yeah.
And so we're having conversations about that. And
fair
how we
play is
divide.
basically like dividing up tasks, right? Like
Yes,
the deck
yes.
of cards is like all the different things, like take the trash out, sweep the floors.
Yeah.
Like you just don't even realize how many tasks there are to do and who's doing what, and taking a look at it and deciding intentionally like who is in charge of what, instead of just
Well,
assuming it defaults to whoever.
exactly. And I mean, what you see, because what happened during the pandemic? Well, first of all, a lot of women had to leave the workforce because schools were shut down and things like that. I mean, so there was a mass exodus and lots of things happened in the economy as well. And so the numbers of women in work actually went back to what they were in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So there's this huge, we've seen a lot of changes during the pandemic. And even this last year, they're calling it like the great breakup. A lot of women leaders in corporations, they're not advancing. They're doing different work, within their organizations that's not being recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're actually leaving. They're going to organizations and businesses that do recognize what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you've also seen a lot of changes in the home, in families through the pandemic. I mean, divorces and separations have gone up quite a bit as well. The pandemic brought up a lot for families to kind of take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, a lot of it is because women's during the pandemic, women's work went up. And a stay-at-home mom is working 80 to 100-hour weeks. I mean, and so if you're at home or if you're at work, like women pick up the slack.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, when there are some of these gaps, when there are big changes, even from, I think, on a big like macro level, you have to kind of step back, and women took on more of the burden with the changes
Mm-hmm.
that happened during the pandemic. And so that took a toll on women. There was a lot of overwhelm that eventually led to burnout.
Yeah.
For a lot of these women.
Yeah. So can you give just maybe like a tip or something that comes up for you in coaching a lot, like what you would say to the working mom that's just feels like she's struggling on both ends of the stick? And like we're talking about one is going to affect the other. Like, where could she even start if she's just so overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, so one of my favorite books, and this is one of the books that honestly I give to every one of my clients that works with me, is Essentialism.
Okay.
And it's the concept that you are the asset.
Mm-hmm.
Protect the asset. If you don't prioritize your time, someone else will. And so it's taking a look at the unconscious patterns and choosing with intention, and not believing that And because one of the things I think and this comes up a lot in lots of different spaces, but women don't want to be labeled as selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, though, when you give first to yourself, when you take care of your sleep, when you take care of your health and your wellness, when you get a little bit of alone time,
Mm-hmm.
as a stay-at-home mom, there was nothing I craved more than just 5, 10, 15 minutes of alone time. When you
Mm-hmm.
give yourself that, when you're able to fill your own cup first, you have so much more to give in every area of your life. And so I just think, and I can go into my own personal journey, but, when the cup is empty, you have nothing to give.
Yeah.
And that impacts you, of course, and it impacts everyone that's around you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost cliche nowadays talking about self-care, but there's a reason why it's so talked about, because it's so necessary. Because I literally, like, I could go out there right now and just get swept up in whatever the kids want me to do for the whole rest of the day. I'd be like cleaning up after them. Mommy, give me this. Mommy, give me that. Mommy, do this with me. Mommy, watch a movie with me. Mommy, can I come play with me? Like, literally the whole entire day, I'm just at their whim. Like you said, if I don't plan my time, then someone else will. My husband, everybody, my calling, my everything, everybody has an agenda for me. And if I don't choose with intention what I want, then I feel that. I'm like, I don't get what I want ever. When do I ever get to do what I want to do? Is like a phrase that I've heard my brain say and come out my mouth like a lot. And so whether you're stay-at-home mom, whether you're working mom, whether whatever, like we all have a million hats and a million things to do. And I literally like go out there in my house and I'm like, I could literally just clean up the whole entire day. I can spend my whole entire day cleaning up after these kids and they're just coming right in behind me, messing it up again. So what's the point? I want to do something that's not going to get destroyed in 30 seconds, And, and, and I do want to spend time with them, but it's like, if I'm doing it with like my mind half somewhere else, because that's what I want to be doing, then I'm not really with them. And so when we can get intentional about how we want to spend our time, I think that's really good.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point of, and I believe Jody Moore talks about like parenting brings up kind of our two core fears. And one of them is something has gone wrong. And like the perfect example that, you could have a perfectly clean house or like you've spent all day cleaning and then, the little kids just come down and everything comes down very quickly. With my kids, like it could be within seconds or minutes of and so your brain wants to go to like something has gone wrong, right? But actually that's living with kids.
Yeah.
That's living at kind of this messy middle. And I mean, it's really interesting because, when you're not taking care of yourself, when you're like to the whims of your kids, of your spouse, of everybody else that, wants your service, wants your time. One of the things that I found in myself, I found in my clients is you start experiencing resentment.
Yes.
And, resentment leads to anger, leads to, I mean, lots of different emotions, overwhelm, lots of different things can come up. But for me, I found that if I am experiencing resentment, is because I'm not giving myself something.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to something external or someone
to fill that need for me.
Where it's something that I can take a look at and I can give myself first.
Yeah. So I was just remembering, sorry to change the subject, that we haven't even mentioned like your military background and things. Are you coaching like military moms still, or are you focused on like corporate?
So I'm focused on corporate, but I also work with entrepreneurs that, have their own business, and a lot of them have teams. So I'm a part of the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs. There's 2,000 to 3,000 business owners all over the world, married to service members, incredible women, support their families, hold up the home when their spouses deploy.
Yeah.
Many of them have often multiple deployments that their family has experienced, and then are also business owners and are trying to use their skill sets. Because one of the little known facts about military life and military spouses is actually 26% are unemployed. And part of that is because you move every year, every 2 years. And also because you are the fallback, you are the safety plan, you are the family plan, because your spouse, their employment can change on a dime. It changes according to national security. What's the needs of the military? What's the needs of that organization? So they can up and leave at any point.
Yeah.
Their location can change at any point. Your family can be uprooted. You could be going somewhere. I have a friend who bought a home in a place that they were moving. While they were en route, they were sent different orders. Okay, you're no longer going to DC. You're now reroute to Texas. So these things happen all the time. And so there's that bit of uncertainty, and it all comes back to that solid spouse who stays strong for the children, who holds, the safety, the love in any transition, and also gets an outlet of some of their skills. So it's an incredible community. I'm so grateful to be a part of. I love to give back. I've worked with Independent, which is a nonprofit. Love to, attend. The USO they're always putting on events for connections, for military, either online or in person, just so that, connecting in with that community is so important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a military brother, and I can't even talk about his wife without choking up. I can't even imagine what she does to be that solid foundation for their family, when they are uprooted over and over and over, and how they just roll with it. And
I will just put a plug in there. I mean, this is a very resilient community, but this community is just beginning to learn about coaching.
Yeah.
And coaching, in my personal opinion, is the skill set that whatever is thrown at you, whatever circumstance, you have the tools to navigate through that.
Yeah.
And coaching, and once you learn the skills, you have them for the rest of your life. And it will transform your life, your family, and your community. And so coaching is one of the ways that you really can reach your full potential.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Hallelujah. Amen. Okay. So tell the peeps how they can find you and where to get more of you.
Yes. So I love to hang out on Instagram. Come follow me at sarah.shiozawa. If you've listened to this podcast interview, come introduce yourself. You can sign up for a consult call, come introduce yourself. Also, my website is www.sarahshiozawa.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Clubhouse, but Instagram is my very favorite place to meet and to connect with people.
So fun. Okay. And we'll have all of that in the show notes, of course, all the links and things. So reach out to Sarah if, any of that applies to you and you're ready to take it deeper, because she is an amazing coach with an amazing smile that you can't help but feel better just being in her space. So thank you so much for being here, Sarah. We will talk to you later.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a privilege to be here.
Hey friend, thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about how you can believe that you are a good mom, head over to dropthewordlifecoach.com/believe, and you get access to my free pre-recorded masterclass that will teach you all about the hands-on, exactly how to believe that you are a good mom. Start believing right now. Feel the peace, my friend. We got this. You got this. See you there.